Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Drums and Drams Spring 2021 Virtual Concert. My name is Cameron, and I'm really excited about this project and to share this with all of you. I thought that it's finally the right time to sort of bring together what I do for a living as a full-time touring musician and what I do here on WhiskeyTube with whiskey and making videos and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was the perfect time to bring these things together and just see if this sort of creative crossover works. And if it doesn't, that's totally okay. And this will be the first and only virtual concert. But if it does go over well, I'm hoping that I'll be able to do this maybe a couple of times per year to sort of share the new music that I'm working on with all of you in a little bit of a different way. So for those of you who are joining me live right now as this video is premiering, thank you again for being here. We've already been hanging out for about 15 to 20 minutes on sort of a pre-show live stream. But if you're catching the replay of this video at a later date, welcome. Thank you for being here. And I'm sure you're wondering, like, what the heck is going on? What's this virtual concert all about? So let me tell you, I'll give you a little bit of background here at the beginning of the video. Try to keep this short, and then we'll get right to the music. So again, I'm a full-time touring musician. I'm actually a solo percussionist, so I do a lot of different stuff. I play sort of classical recitals. I perform as a soloist with orchestras. I do a lot of work with multimedia stuff, electronics, sort of staging and different types of production. And so there's sort of a wide variety of things there. But I wanted to share some of my pieces for solo percussion. A lot of them have electronics in them. A lot of them have theatrics. Some really neat stuff going on in there. It's not as weird or boring as it sounds. I wanted to share some of that with you, perform for you, and then offer up some whiskey pairings that will go along with the 4 pieces that you're going to hear on this virtual concert. Before we go any further, I should just say that I'm doing this concert for free, 100%. But if you do feel so inclined, if you enjoy what you're seeing and you want to help support the channel and just offer, a small little donation for the work that went into this concert, $5 to $10, my PayPal and Venmo links are in the description below. Or if you're catching this live, you can always super chat as you normally would. All right, so I think that's all I've got here for the introduction. Let's talk about the very first piece that we're going to be getting into. This is the most simplistic piece. It's also the shortest piece, but probably the most traditional and beautiful. It's very bluesy. It's called Blues for Gilbert. It's by a composer named Maric Glentworth, and it's written for solo vibraphone. So no electronics with this. It's just me and a vibraphone. You'll see it's a very, again, bluesy, groovy, a little bit sort of somber piece. It's written to commemorate the life of the composer's vibraphone teacher who passed away some years ago. His name was Gilbert. So again, this is Blues for Gilbert. And the whiskey that we're going to be pairing with this is Gentleman Jack. Now, if you don't have Gentleman Jack, pretty much any low-proof Jack Daniels will do. You could go for the single barrel proof, but to start off the night with something easy, you might not want to pick something over 130 proof like that. But the Gentleman Jack here is going to do just fine, and that's because of the Frank Sinatra connection with Jack Daniels. We all know that Jack Daniels makes the Sinatra Select, Sinatra Century, and he was known for drinking Jack Daniels. So when I think of blues, when I think of big band music, jazz, any of these genres, I always think about Frank Sinatra. And so I feel like Gentleman Jack with this bluesy vibraphone solo is going to be a great pairing. The last thing I'll say before we get to this first piece is that if you don't know what a vibraphone is, just think of a xylophone, but it's a metal xylophone and it has a foot pedal. And so when you press the pedal down, the notes will ring out. And when you let the pedal go up, the notes will stop and it becomes a much drier and shorter sound. You'll see what I mean. Here we go. This is Blues for Gilbert by Maric Glentworth. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that piece. Like I said, it's a very sad, somber, and melancholy tune, but it's also very bluesy and beautiful. And I hope it makes sense now why I put an 80 proof entry-level Jack Daniels offering like Gentleman Jack with that piece. The smoothness of the pour, how easygoing it is, it really kind of pairs well with, that very emotional vibraphone music. But now we have something completely different, and I'm very excited to share this piece with you. It's actually a world premiere. It's something that was written for me a couple of months ago during the pandemic. I worked with a composer named Nick Werth, and he wrote me this piece entitled Originating Within. Now, this piece is a much larger one than the previous Blues for Gilbert. This one features a lot of different percussion instruments. I'm wearing in-ear monitors, and I'm performing along with electronics. It's got a lot more going on, and I'm so excited to share this with you. The piece sort of deals with elements of nature. You'll hear a little bit of narration going on in there as well, but it's got a sick groove, some really cool backbeat stuff going on. Nick is a classically trained percussionist like me, but he's also really, really involved in hip hop. And so he took a lot of this stuff that Jay Dilla, if you're familiar with Jay Dilla, took a lot of the swing beats that Jay Dilla would use in a lot of his music when he would produce stuff, and he has implemented that in this piece for solo percussion and electronics. So again, it's called Originating Within. I think you'll really dig it. And in terms of the whiskey pairing, we're going with this new riff single barrel. And I'm going to explain why. Obviously, this piece is brand new, the first time anyone's ever heard it. New riff. The names kind of make a lot of sense. But also, this was a very unique piece. I don't think hip hop and classical percussion have ever come together quite this way. And so the fact that this new riff is a single barrel offering, it's one of a kind. And I feel like this piece is also one of a kind. Obviously, this single barrel is moving up the proof ladder here. We're at 105.4 proof. So in terms of this flight, we're starting to increase and get a little higher proof. But if you don't have a new riff, I feel like any craft distillery's single barrel offering at a decent proof would pair very well with this piece. So again, this is entitled Originating Within. It's brand new to go with this new riff. I hope you enjoy.
All sound comes from within. Within each of us, the truest sign of life speaks effortlessly. The closer we listen, the greater it grows. As we rely upon this rhythmic pattern, our heart relies upon the earth beneath our feet. When our environment is just right, clean air, clean water, and proper sunlight, an entire world of rhythmic pattern is revealed through the power of creativity. More space. Yes. With space to breathe, the heart begins to sing. sometimes our heart's not in it. And this can be difficult to accept. Within it, within it, within it, within it, originating within it. But when it returns, we're reminded of a limitless inspiration. Limitless. All sound comes from within, 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 within. Originating within, originating within, originating within, originating within, originating within, originating space.
All right, so that was Originating Within by Nick Werth. I hope you enjoyed that piece. It is really freaking fun to play. It's hard. As you can see, there are some moments where I'm playing like kick drum with my foot, one mallet instrument with this hand, and then I'm splitting between two mallet instruments in my right hand. Yeah, it's not easy, but again, it is a really cool way that Nick has found to bring together these sort of classical percussion instruments with his background in hip hop and all these other things. And when you get to that backbeat section at the end and you're playing those hits on the snare drum, it just feels so good. I love that so much. The message of the piece too really deals a lot with nature, but it also deals sort of with our struggles as artists during the COVID pandemic. I mean, Nick wrote this during COVID, and it was a very intense collaborative process between he and I, but it was also just tough. I mean, it was tough to make it all happen and to get it done, but I'm so glad it is. And again, New riff. I mean, that piece basically is a new riff. Haha. But lame jokes aside, let's get to the next piece now. As you can see, we've got some new bourbons here on the drum. Let's talk about the piece first. It is the longest piece of tonight's concert, coming in at about 13 minutes. Okay, so I know that seems long. We're not talking about pop songs on the radio that are 3 minutes. We're talking about sort of, something a little different. It's 13 minutes. It's called Trilogy, and it's by a composer named Dave Maric. It's called Trilogy because there are 3 movements to this piece. Now, if you would go to an orchestra concert, I don't know if any of us or any of you watching have been to an orchestra concert. Typically, you play like a couple of shorter pieces at the beginning of the concert, and then at the end, you play the big symphony after intermission, and that's usually really, really long. Well, this is sort of the symphony of this concert because it's the longest piece, again, coming in at 13 minutes and in 3 movements. Those numbers have significance here, 13 minutes, 3 movements, and that's the reason I've chosen this next bourbon as the pairing. It's the Discovery, batch number 3 from Bardstown Bourbon Company. And as you all know, this is a blend of 3 different bourbons. It's series 3, so this piece comes in 3 movements. It makes a lot of sense there. And most of the bourbon in here is 13 years old. This piece is 13 minutes long. I feel like it's a perfect pairing, coming in at 110 proof. Again, we're still moving up the proof ladder here as we get through this concert. A very realistic flight, I feel like, going from Gentleman Jack, New Riff, and now to this Discovery 3. But of course, if you don't have Discovery 3, you could substitute with any other Discovery series, kind of for the same effect. Or you could go for maybe this Augusta Buckner's 13-year single barrel. It's also 13 years old. Or you could go for the Sam Houston 14. This is 14 years old, not 13, but it is made in 3-barrel batches to go along with the 3 movements. Whatever poison you pick here, it's going to pair very well with this piece. Again, it's Trilogy by Dave Maric. It's a massive setup. It also uses electronics, and I think you're really, really going to enjoy this. So if you couldn't tell, Dave, the composer of that last piece, is heavily influenced by EDM or electronic dance music, specifically the trance and drum and bass subgenres, if you're familiar with any of those. And you can really hear that in the first movement there when I'm flying around the setup, flying around all those different instruments. There's a ton of electronics going on. It's just a great piece. And the way that all of that works is that Dave actually recorded and sampled sounds from all of the instruments that you saw me playing there, and then created his own electronic track that I perform along with. But obviously I'm playing something a little bit different than the track itself. And Dave likes to call this sort of a super instrument where you can't really tell what's coming from the electronics and what's coming from me. It's really effective, and audiences at my concerts tend to love that piece because of the spectacle of being surrounded by all of those instruments. Obviously, they love the big gong in the back for the one note that you play there. But again, I love to perform that piece. I think it's really, really great. But now we're on to the last piece of this virtual concert. Thank you guys for hanging out and checking this out. This is going to be totally, totally different than anything that I've played thus far. The piece is entitled Ceci n'est pas une balle, which in my broken French means this is not a ball. It's written by Alexandre Esperet, a French percussionist. And it's the only one that I can't record in my basement percussion studio, which is where all of the other pieces were recorded. It needs a little more space, and I don't have enough space here. So I'm going to be sharing some old concert footage. It's not that old. It's actually the very last concert that I performed before the COVID shutdown. So it's kind of a special concert to me. It's the final piece. It's my encore piece I do at all of my concerts. So I think you'll really enjoy it. It's written for body percussion, theatrical percussionist, and electronics. So I'm not actually playing any instruments. You'll see what it's all about. I think you'll really, really dig it. Again, the title is This Is Not a Ball. And before I show this final piece, I've got to say thank you to my sponsors, Maric, Sabian Cymbals, Rustic Percussion, and Black Swan Percussion for everything that they do to support me musically. And what else do I need to say? Oh yeah, the final whiskey pairing. Because this is a French piece, I went with a little French theme here. High proof, high quality whiskey. Chateau de la Baude collaboration with Bardstown Bourbon Company is my recommended pairing because it is finished in French Armagnac barrels. If you don't have this, you could go with the Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend, also Armagnac finished. And if you don't have either of those because they're expensive and hard to find, you could go with an Armagnac. This is a 25-year Delord. You could also maybe go with a bourbon that's been finished in any sort of wine cask from the Bordeaux region of France. Be creative, but it's a French theme. Thinking high proof because it's the end of the night, end of the flight, that kind of thing. I'll be back at the very end of this video for about a minute or two to kind of sign off here and wrap things up. But without further ado, please enjoy This Is Not a Ball.
bow or not to bow? That is the question.
All right, well, that's the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and checking this out. I hope you enjoyed that last piece. Again, it's really sort of a creative thing. You're dancing around with this imaginary bouncy ball. And then finally, at the very end, it appears out of nowhere. It's actually in my back pocket. But it's a great piece. Again, it's a really cool encore, and audiences love to end shows on a high note like that. You know, I can always judge how in shape I am by all that jumping around and dancing around on stage. Some shows are harder than others, I will tell you that. But thank you again for being here, for checking this out. I would love to know what you guys thought of this idea. The music, the whiskey pairings, everything. Should I do this again? Should I never do this again? What could be done better? What did you enjoy? What was your favorite piece? I want to hear from you, so please drop me a comment below. Like this video if you enjoyed it. If you didn't, please don't hit the dislike button. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell and all that kind of good stuff. And if you want to show some more support for Drums and Drams, you can always check out the Patreon in the description below. And also, if you enjoyed the concert and you want to show a little bit of support, the PayPal, Venmo links, all that kind of stuff, also in the description below. Now, if you're joining me live right now as this concert is airing, follow the link, again, in the description below to the debrief sort of post-show live stream where we can talk about this and hang out for a couple more minutes here. But if you're joining me after the fact, if you're watching this replay, thank you again for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to go ahead and end with this final pour of Chateau de la Baude from that very last piece. Thank you all so, so much. And I'll see you next time here on Drums and Drams.